Welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 117, with our Design Center of the Americas resident artist Janet Siegel Rogers here from her beautiful space at the DCOTA in Dania Beach. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, started an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists like her could have space to create and collaborate, get discovered, collected, and shown outside of their homes affordably, which has created a myriad of win-win-wins with the first 33 spaces we've activated over the last 6 years across 4 states, changing hundreds of artists' lives thousands of times over. And the point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists like her that make the program what it is. And this is a very special one today. We're very excited to share. So without much further ado, Janet, you've built a remarkable career, both as an artist and an educator. Can you just start off and share a little bit about your creative journey and maybe what first inspired you to pursue a life in the arts?
All right. Well, I have to start way back. It really started with my mother, a great supporter, and she was told when I was in kindergarten that I had great talent. Now, I don't remember that, but I do remember standing at the little easel with all the pots of color and the brushes and loved every minute of it. So she continued to support me, and in middle school, she let me go to Saturday classes, much to the disgust of my grandmother, who thought I should be home learning how to take care of the house and cook. So those were the days. Those are way back in the 1940s. And then in high school, I was able to go down to the Art Institute in Chicago during the summers to take classes. And one of the nicest things that happened to me, that one day we were sent out along Lake Michigan to paint and draw. And what I did there, that the teacher kept my piece, and it looked a lot like Marin. So also at the Art Institute, I would pass by all the Impressionist paintings, especially Monet's water lilies, that were collected and donated by Frederick Bartlett, who built the Bonnet House in Lauderdale.
Correct.
So it's been a long journey, and I learned more about him when I was working at the Bonnet House.
And one of the most fascinating places that I love to go to in Chicago for art, so if you haven't been, certainly encourage people to go. Now, from those early iterations of dabbling in your creativity, how did the work start off? What were you initially kind of creating back then, and how has the work, at least in those early stages,
Well,
developed?
I went on to college, Denison University, Granville, Ohio. I majored in art and English and got a secondary teaching degree. And there I was mainly exploring what I wanted to do. I didn't have a definite goal in mind. But one of the nice things that happened is my next supporter I met there, my husband, Kurt. And that he, believe it or not, he used to pose for me, but not naked. He had his bathing suit on, but he supported me in whatever I was doing for my art, and that helps a lot. A lot of the boyfriends I had were more interested in themselves, so
that's why this one stuck around.
That's why we've been married 65 years.
So when he's posing, you were doing figurative,
and then also landscape. So I carried on with that. After college, and I taught at a school district. I set up the whole program for the elementary schools and the middle school and the high school. And then we went off into the Air Force. After the Air Force, he wanted to get his MBA at Michigan State.
Okay.
And while we were there, we had a little baby, Laura, and he said, why don't you take a couple courses? So I started my MFA at Michigan State. However, he was hired to work internationally, so we lived in the Orient and Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, and that was a good experience. I was still teaching private lessons there, but I gotta tell you, the Oriental art really inspired me because much of it's very simplistic, figure ground, And that was a big plus for me.
Wow. And I always like to encourage artists to travel to gain other perspectives and worldviews, especially from parts of the world like that where the work is.
It's so different. I mean, we've all studied European art all the time, but this is just very refreshing and another thing to learn. I was selected to be in shows there, so in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And but anyway, that was a fun time. I felt Hong Kong was an adult Disney World. This was long before they had to give it up and give it back to the Chinese.
Fair enough. Now, from the initial dabbling and the initial figure drawings and the initial landscapes that you mentioned, how has the work how has your work transpired to what we might see behind us?
When we got back home, by that time when we were home, we had 4 children. And Kurt said to me, when our youngest one went to first grade, you promised you would finish your master's. So the school that was closest to us was William Patterson University.
Oh, Willie P.
Wayne, New Jersey. So I had to take what work I had from the Orient and different places and interview. And the interviewer was John Day. And he looked at my work and he said, well, I'm sure you sell well, but this isn't what I like. So I'm thinking, oh my God. But yes, I got into the program, but I made up my mind right then. I'm going to do better than you can think I can do, John. It was good. It was a good push, you know?
Nice.
And so, yes, I did, because John said to Kurt later on, he says, when she sells her work for more money than I get, I'm really going to be mad. So anyway, he was a very tough teacher. Although I learned a lot, he was teaching something in the class across from the studio I was working in. They were playing with colored paper. So I said, John, what in the heck is going on over there? And he says, well, I want you to join us. That was Joseph Albers' Experiments in Color.
Whoa.
I did the whole lessons. They loved it. I worked hours on my lessons. That changed my whole life. That whole program changed my whole life and changed how I treated my art. Less is more, because Albers was from the Bauhaus School. I went on and taught that course. I've taught that course since 1973 to high school, privately, college. When I finished my degree at William Patterson, they asked me to come back and teach. So I was teaching there, and John said to me, Janet, you're doing such a good job, but you just have a master's. You need to get your terminal degree now. So off I went to Pratt, and we lived in New Jersey, and I went over to Brooklyn and got my degree. Still had 4 kids, and Kurt was in Florida because he was hired in a job down here. So it was kind of a challenge, but I did it.
Wow.
And then as soon as I finished my degree in 1982, I moved to Florida. But when I was working on my master's MFA at Pratt, I was using spheres and circles as my bite format for my colors. So I was a colorist. I was doing what Albers did, except that he did it side by side, and I was doing it by what is beneath the color and how it is changing. And I was having trouble, and my professor at Pratt said, Janet, there's a book that you've got to get, and this is it, Formulas for Painters. And in the book is a formula for how to matte your work. It's a varnish that you can put on. So, because I was using glazes, I was getting shiny places and I was getting dull places. And so I did this, I found it in there, beeswax, purified beeswax and turpentine. And you do it on a double boiler. You melt the beeswax, purified, 1 part beeswax and 7 parts gum spirits of turpentine. when that turpentine hits the heat, the fumes are all over the house. The kids were all in school, so it was okay. So I had some left. Oh, by the way, it did a beautiful job on the paintings. You just put it on with a cloth and it mats everything, so there was no more shine and dullness. It was all, and the colors just were perfect. So I had a little bit left, and I'm too scotch to throw it out. So I decided I'm going to try and add it to my oil paint. That's my whole discovery on how I add beeswax to my oils, which does this. It separates the pigment, allows light to penetrate the surface, and then the light comes back up through the different surfaces and interacts. This is all interacting with what's underneath. The color is underneath, interacting back into and forward. Albers did it side by side, if you know his work. Experiment, but I'm doing it, pushing it back in, the light, and letting the light come forward.
And do you still use that technique with your work today?
Yes, I do. If I'm painting these, the last painting, the big painting I did was for last year's Art Miami. It was huge. It's 4 feet by 5 feet, and it was all done with that. Underneath was one blue, and on top were two blues. I only try and use 3 colors, and it interacts in there. You'd think there's more color there than what really is, just by the colors interacting.
Oh, I've heard a lot of things. I've heard a lot of techniques. I've never heard that before.
And that's why I'm in museums.
Yeah, which we'll get to, deservedly so. I appreciate you sharing, and I mean, this is just a phenomenal. I happen to open up to the beeswax page, but this is a phenomenal book here.
I don't know if you can still get it. Probably somewhere. There must be some. You can see it's well used.
Yeah, I'm sure at some secondhand bookstores they still carry it, and it might not be $5.95 anymore, but definitely brilliant work. So then, from that period,
I was at Pratt. I graduated in 1982. Came to Florida with the kids to be with Kurt. We bought a house in Wilton Manors, and there is the start of my whole career in Florida. Now, I was doing these spheres and circles for my format for my color, but I came to Florida, and I was using only 3 colors up in Pratt. I used ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, Naples yellow, plus white, and for 3 years that's all I used. And they were more grayed, not as shiny, not as brilliant, but I come to Florida and all of a sudden there's color.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no mountains, no hills, but there is a horizon. So I'm using the horizon in my work. This is Florida. But then from that, I push the color off to the top and off to the bottom, and you get a depth of field with that line coming in there. And sometimes some of these works can be turned either way, because I paint them either way, one vertically and then horizontally. So anyway, that's what I did with these, and that's until recently, and I think you want to ask me later on what I'm doing.
Yeah, brilliant, and the colors do pop in such a way, and even the strokes pop in such a way, and it's interesting, not just because you're here at the front, but people at our space in DCOTA here, but people are always gravitated towards your work. There's like certainly a vibrancy to it, and so maybe even some of these hues that I guess I'm just not used to seeing, or people aren't used to mixing to make. So your work has such a powerful sense of light and movement, and it's often expressed through these layered mediums that you mentioned, like caustic and oil. What does light from within mean to you in your practice?
Well, that's a very personal question too, because I think all of us have our inner light, but I find that in my paintings, I love to look and feel that I'm going into the painting and then can come back out visually, you know. And I like if the strokes carry the color. The strokes aren't just to put color down. They're very important. The strokes are me on the day I'm painting it. So that is kind of my signature.
Wow.
And so that's one of the things. And I think that when I bring the strokes towards the center, or if there is a center, that is the pushing the light within the painting.
Beautiful. And yes, everybody does have their own light from within, and everybody has their own unique story, and everybody has their own unique journey. But we're glad that you've been able not only to find this creative outlet for yourself, but you mentioned, and it's no small feat. I have no idea how you did it, but 4 kids, going to get multiple degrees, husband working outside of the home. So kudos to you for.
Well, I lost some thought of that now that I'm at this age, because I couldn't do it now.
Right.
But it was because I wanted to. I was warned many times. My mentor, John Day, said, Janet, you'll never make it when you have 4 kids. Also, when I was at Denison, the head of the department graduating just looked at me and said, you know what, it's such a waste of our time to be teaching you women, because you're going to end up getting married and having kids. Now, this is in the early 50s, right? And I'm going, whoa, here I'm getting my degree, I've worked, and he's telling me this. I thought he was older because he had his PhD in painting. So I remembered that as I'm working, and when I had my first New York solo show, I found out where he was. He was teaching in Rhode Island, and I wrote him a letter. I said, Dr. Kettner, this is Janet Rogers, and way back you told me blah, 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 but I'm now in New York having a solo show. I have 4 kids, and I'm still married to the same man. Where are you? I got a 2-page letter, and he said, I grew up. He says, I've grown up. I learned that what I was thinking wasn't, and he was young. I didn't realize he was as young as he was. But anyway, I got a very nice apology.
So it was different times.
I need to tell people, especially most of these artists that are beginning, if somebody is critical or makes you mad, use that and grow on it. Because that's what I did. I wasn't going to sit down. I was going to show them you can do it. It is true, it's not easy, but my kids all went along with my art. They're very supportive. And they were as young people too.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy path, right? And it's not, and especially when you're going against the grain or charting your own path or creating, a new medium, new way of working.
And most people can't see it. The ordinary people have a hard time seeing my work.
Correct.
I had a studio down in Miami at the Bakehouse. Did you ever remember when they had?
Yes, a big fan of the Bakehouse is part of our inspiration.
Well, the Bakehouse, I was in the original one.
Oh, wow.
I would travel from Wilton Manors down to paint down there. And when the people would come and see my work, they say, now do you paint flowers? Is that your background?
Huh.
Because the ordinary person doesn't want to stop and look.
Right.
See what's happening. They want bang art.
Right.
They want something they recognize that they know. This is something totally new to them, so it isn't easy.
Correct. That's a very good point. That is a very good point, because, and that's what I wanted to maybe try to highlight a little bit from your story, from your journey, from the struggle, because it's not easy, but when you are motivated and ultimately you were destined to reach this level that we haven't even really scratched the surface of yet, that then the cream rises to the top, right? And if it came easy and you painted a pretty picture of flower and it sold because people like flowers, like there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and people get a lot of good feeling from it. That's fine.
Of course,
that's fine. But it's kind of like even the Impressionists. Okay, when they broke loose with their color and breaking it and colored light that way, they weren't selling. Everybody was laughing at them. Now, wouldn't we just dearly love to have one of their pieces in our home?
I just heard today Van Gogh only sold 2 paintings when he was alive.
That's true. That's true. And he didn't, and he kept going. If
Right.
You have,
Exactly.
If you read his letters to Theo.
Correct.
Oh, wow. And I got to tell you, the person that I totally admire was Theo's wife, who kept all of his work after he died and his brother Theo died, and wouldn't let it out. And then she kept working and working to get a museum or somebody to recognize it. And she was the one that brought him fame.
And imagine.
And she was the sister-in-law.
Right.
Brilliant. I mean.
Great documentary where you could read the letters, hear the letters read. Definitely. But right, another testament to if this is your calling, if this is what you want to do as an artist, if this is, I like to say, I've seen so much art that the work that speaks to me now in my life is the work that pains the artist to create, that they're called to the canvas at 3 in the morning in the middle of the night to get up out of bed versus the pretty picture of the flower, which once again serves its purpose, interior design. I love flowers. Flowers bring me joy as well. But your work and work like that shines through.
When I'm painting, I don't just start on the canvas. I don't think you realize that. It's a lot of preparation, a lot of thinking. You see these swatches back here? Can I get them?
Yeah, please.
I'm working on hue to hue, equal value all the time. And that's what gives the glow to these. Many of them, if you took a black and white picture, you wouldn't see very much. So I'm working on hue to hue, equal value, and that gives you more of a glow than if you deal just in value paintings. Anyway, I work on that, and I also work on getting small ones, like that one, or here's a small one of this one. Let's show.
So is that a print or?
No, these are actual paintings. That's a beginning of this one.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So I'm very organized with it, and that's the only way you said getting up in the middle of the night. No, in the middle of the night I'm probably doing laundry. But I have to be organized to do what I do. And especially when we have the family at home and all.
Of course. No, brilliant. I appreciate you sharing that. And, over time, obviously now the work has evolved. So what keeps you exploring these new directions in your work today?
Oh, well, I now have arthritis in my hands and fingers, and it's very difficult. I cannot do these big ones very often because it takes a lot of energy.
Right.
So I have turned to something else. I'm using colored pencils in miniature work, and it takes a long time, but it's very soothing and very peaceful to do the noodling with your fingers. It also helps my arthritis, by the way, but I'll show you. Here they are. It's Prismacolor pencils. Everybody knows those that artists do.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of wax in the pigment. So it's similar to the oil paint, which is pigment and oil, and then I add the wax. But with this, I'm learning every single day about how to layer it so that I get that glow. Now, here's one I just finished. This is just colored pencil.
Wow. And the glow is still there.
Yes, and the strokes are there. Can you do that?
Yeah.
And these are miniatures, and I'm working towards, eventually it takes me a long time. Like with the painting, I can do the painting probably in a week or two. but these take me, sometimes 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Wow.
Because it's
Yeah.
noodling, and then I have to use a fixative, workable fixative, and then do the next layer and the next layer. Here's one I just worked on when I was here, and I put tape on the side, you'll see, but so you can see it looking good, you might want to put this over it.
Here, we'll
This
swap-
one's
swap
very
here.
strong.
And it's interesting how you mentioned, right, you could have it either upside down or downside up, or
Or
there's...
it's vertical or horizontal. And because colored pencils, I have to use more than 1 or 3 colors. And so I remember, I write it everything on the back. On the back is what I'm using.
Interesting. Now, are you making these to sell? Are you making these for creative outlet or to help your arthritis, or
Right now it's for me.
good? And that's an option as well.
And eventually, maybe I'll have enough for a little mini show, because mini art is coming back in.
Yep.
I mean, most people aren't buying these big ones.
Correct.
So mini art is coming in, and it's just as valid as a bigger painting.
And one of the ideas we're working on here for the holidays with some of your studio mates is to do holiday themed exhibits, events, pop-ups with smaller pieces that are easier for people to leave with at a price point. And
Yeah, well, the prices on these are very high.
okay, right. Nevertheless, or also easier for them to find a place for on their wall, because bigger pieces, right? You need a big wall, or you need a big museum or a gallery. And you have mentioned, and this is something definitely worth mentioning, that you have 2 of your major works that were collected by the Boca Raton Museum of Art, both donated by collectors. Can you tell us the story behind those pieces and what that experience meant for you as an artist?
Yes. The first piece that was donated was bought through a art rep for me, and the name was Mr. and Mrs. David Funk, and they bought the painting. The painting was painted in 1988. It was called Beyond. I have a picture of it here in my book.
Nice.
Let's see if you can see it.
And the book is available to be seen here in the
Yes, I
studio.
have plenty of these. You may come by.
Yeah,
Here. It's
beautiful.
okay. Anyway, they bought it in the early 1990s, and then I guess they were downsizing because they contacted the agent who contacted me. They wanted to know what they could do with it. And I said, well, you could go and ask the museums if they're interested, because they would be donating it. They could take the tax write-off. Artists cannot take the tax write-off when they donate their work. They can take off what the paint costs and the canvas costs, and that's it. So they went to the Boca Museum and donated this painting. At that time, George Bolge was the director, and he loved the painting so much it hung in his office. I didn't know that until I went to visit him one day. I said, oh, you have my painting here. And he says that's one of his favorite. I have to tell you, which is really interesting, when I had the solo show up in the land, they wanted the paintings from the Boca Museum.
From his office?
Yeah, well, it was already in storage, so they had me come over to make sure they got the right paintings to send up there. This is what they do. The people had white gloves. They had to undo this wooden crate. Then there was all kinds of mesh around it so it wouldn't rattle. Then there was plastic. Then there was a glassine over the painting. And the whole time, this was taking an hour to unpack the painting just so I could see it, so they could send it. That's how they take care of the work.
It's a real deal.
It really is. And they also have another painting that was donated by Elaine Baker. It's very dark. but she wanted to make sure that it would stay in a collection because it's another major piece. Blue Electra. Now, you can't, where is it?
So she donated this piece as well to the museum?
Yeah, and you can't see it, but that line is electric. In the photographs don't do it because it's all equal value, and that's what I'm telling you, that the camera can't do what I can do as paint. So
I could, it almost looks not pixelated or blurry, but it's not popping like it is here in the studio if you come see Janet at the Design Center of the Americas in Dania Beach. Also, I know very humbly and modest of you, you didn't even say it, I found out, when Bonnie Clearwater, the director curator of the NSU Art Museum, formerly the Fort Lauderdale Museum of Art, came, and I said, none of our artists here, the only artist we have ever had was Anthony Burks up in Palm Beach that was collected by the Norton. I said, none of our artists here have been collected by museums, and she corrected me and said, Janet Rogers has a piece in the permanent collection of the NSU Art Museum, No Small Feat, very deservedly so. Kudos to you.
thank you.
No small feat at all. And also, another very no small feat, if they'd like to see your work outside of the studio, I hear you might be participating in one of the largest art fairs in Miami Art Week.
Art Miami. This is my third time I've been there. Last year I was there at the OMSA, Olmsted Gallery. I'll be with them again. And I painted a special painting for them. It was called Hunker Down. It is a blue painting, and it was large, 4 feet by 5 feet, and it was bought when the VIPs came in, right off the bat.
It's the best way to do it.
And because of that, they sold 2 more pieces. So it was a very good show.
Amazing. And Art Miami, really outside of Basel at the convention center, is pretty much the top tier.
Well, Bonnie Clearwater was very instrumental in bringing that Art Miami and Art Basel to Miami. So she's a great person.
And Bonnie Clearwater, deservedly so, as you mentioned, did help and was very instrumental back in those early days of bringing the people from New York and the collectors and the parties, and when she was at the MoCA in North Miami. And Bonnie Clearwater, God bless her, has been a great advocate, supporter, patron, participant, leader in the arts in Broward County throughout the museum. We've done some phenomenal things with her during one of our previous initiatives, which was Lauderdale Art Week, where she hosted panel discussions with Ashley James, the first African-American female curator of the Brooklyn Museum, and then the Guggenheim brought in Rob Pruitt's Flea Market, which had been at the Venice Biennale and had been all over the world. And she was kind enough to recently host our artists.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed. Here the director takes time to come down and show us her exhibition. I mean, that's amazing because they're busy people, and so we were able to go there and visit with her and hear what she had
and
to say
hear
about
stories that most people never get to hear. And they have, from what she told us, and I believe her, the only Frida Kahlo portrait, I believe, exhibited in the state of Florida. I mean, just countless star-studded exhibits that she's curated, deservedly so. But one of the great things that she shared, which we're so grateful for the artists when we were able to ask her some questions at the end, was she suggested that artists patronize, visit, travel, go see museums, go get inspiration. Or also, and she also talked about, in a lot of the stories she shared, artists that are fortunate enough or able to go travel and then also see museums in other places. And that's what's led to so many of these art movements that she highlighted in the exhibit that she has, especially with the Latin American artists. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm so grateful that you've had that opportunity, deservedly so.
That's wonderful.
And great addition on the resume for a star-studded well-deserved career.
But I really agree with her. I mean, even if you can't afford to travel to Europe or travel to the Orient or what, you need to go out and see what's happening today in the museums and hear the stories about why they do what they do.
Correct.
Because you have to learn all the time. You have to learn and just keep growing from that. We're fortunate now at our age, we're able to do a lot of traveling. I just spent last May with a Rhodes Scholar trip all the way through France, visiting all Cezanne and all of Matisse and Chagall. And so it was wonderful. And Kurt and I are leaving at the end of this month for Barcelona. That'll be exciting too. And so, but we're fortunate. But right now, if you're young and you can't do it, go to the local museums.
Correct. We talked about before, you've also had work at the Hollywood Art and Culture Center, one of the finest art and culture centers around, that's about to unveil their beautiful new edition of their wing for education. They've done an amazing job. Coral Springs Museum of the Arts, we're in my hometown, is doing a phenomenal job. Kudos to Juliana Ferrero and the team there.
I have to tell you, when you're bringing all this up, I didn't want to come to Florida. I was crying and clicking. What are we going from New York? I mean, up in New Jersey, and I could go to New York and all. But I was very fortunate. I was recognized down here and grew down here, and things have worked out. But I thought, what in the world's going to go on? What happened was I first visited the little museum that was in a shoebox kind of thing at Fort Lauderdale Museum before they built the big.
Yeah.
And I was entering the Hort shows that they used to have. They were juried shows. And the first one I was in was juried by Dwayne Hansen. So that was my beginning of knowing who's who in art. And I also got to know George Bolgi very well, who was the director there then. And so my career started. It's all in where you are, who you know, and how you do it.
And how motivated, disciplined you are, because you're right, back in that day, Florida, especially Broward County, was previously considered a cultural wasteland. And you're coming from Pratt and Bergen County in New Jersey, where I happen to have lived and know Willie P.
Right.
University. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different scene. But thankfully, you were able to see past that, and you were able to create opportunities, and it's contributed to a beautiful life full of art and creativity, travel, adventures, success, deservedly so. We also have some Florida design magazines here you can find in Janet's studio, which she's been in addition to her own book. So having taught and exhibited widely, what have you observed about the relationships between artists, collectors, and the communities that support them that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Well, one thing we didn't really touch on was my teaching career. And in Broward County, I was hired to bring the visual arts into the magnet program at Dillard. So I did that, and I also was art teacher of the year in 1994. But I brought in advanced placement. And
Whoa.
My students actually did very, very well. They were up really high. So I became a reader for advanced placement. And I also taught all around the United States the teachers that were teaching AP. I did that for the College Board. So I didn't stop. And it was a good experience because I'll tell you something. I got more out of teaching those kids and adults than I do actually out of my own paintings. It adds to my painting because I can see their growth and I can bring what I do to them. And so it's a sharing process. And I just love teaching. I really love teaching.
And I did not know that about Dillard, but I will tell you, having grown up in Broward County, born and raised, and worked with Broward County public school systems on initiatives and events in the past, that Dillard magnet program is one of the best around and has produced, although they're not visual artists and painters, Grammy award-winning Billboard chart-topping musicians, the Black Violin, and other deservedly so noteworthy artists and creatives. So kudos for paving the way for the future. I'm so glad that you shared that. And we have, we do have a lot of art teachers here actually in this space, and not everybody is able to make it full time, with your art just purely based off of sales alone. Everybody has their own unique situation, and I'm so glad that you found this path. Correct.
Especially the AP teachers need to keep doing their art, and it feeds into the teaching. Because I was doing it, I was teaching when I was getting all these accolades with the museums and doing the big paintings. I just set aside the weekend to do my art. I wasn't doing it every day. So you just have to, you can throw something in the washing machine and then go back to your art.
Yes, you can. Amen. And I'm so glad you shared that, and hopefully this could provide some inspiration for other teaching artists, or the next wave and generation of teaching artists, that it is possible, that you can achieve these goals. So the last question we'll wrap up with here: as a resident artist at Zero Empty Spaces in DCOTA, what has this experience been like for you, and how do you see spaces like this impacting artists in the broader community?
Well, I'm very proud of you, because you seem to have a cross-section of people just beginning, and then finding their career, and then you have career artists, and I'm enjoying just meeting them and being here. It's pretty lonesome if you just stay in your house, so this has been a good experience for me to be out and back. And of course I'm with my good friend across the way, Liz Vitale. She was when I was at Dillard bringing in the program, she was a brand new teacher.
That's right.
She came into the program brand new, and I had been teaching for years. I've taught everything from kindergarten to graduate school. So we bonded at that time. And then when you opened up, or I guess you had something at the Brett.
At Boca Raton Innovation Campus.
And I called up about it, and you had an extra one, so I called her right away, and so she came over. And then when you did this, we're right here, and she's the one that brings me down here, drives me down 95 from Delray Beach. We both live in Delray Beach, so she brings me, or else Kurt, still supporting me, bringing me down for you.
God bless. So glad that you've been able to, and that brick space runs full as well. But we were able to find both of you a space there. And then when we had the opportunity become available here at DCOTA, both of your works lend itself so well to, a design-centric place like the Design Center of the Americas. So glad to have you here. If they would like to see more of your work, or they'd like to find out more about you and connect with you, well, where can they find your website?
Okay, my website is
your full name.
Oh, my full name, yes, JanetSiegelRogers.com, and it's JanetSiegelRogers.com.
Because there's a couple other
Janet Rogers
that are also noteworthy, successful artists that paint other things. Please, if you get an opportunity to go to Art Miami, check out the OMSA Gallery and her work on one of the biggest stages in the world. That's amazing. And we have other events here at the DCOTA. We've been hosting our monthly breakfast lecture series, our mini TED Talk here, every second Friday morning of the month, called Creative Zen Talks, where we bring in a local speaker to share their thought-provoking, inspiring story. So that's a free event you can find here. There's also, DCOTA has some great events. They're going to do a Dine Around DCOTA Tuesday, October the 14th, with some chefs. And then one of their two big annual events is the Fall Market, which is going to be November the 16th, where we're going to have some active participation. We're going to have some tours. There's hundreds of people that come from the design industry, from the creative community. So, certainly feel free to keep a lookout for those events. And we have open studios here. We're actually doing a lot of events, working on some holiday-themed events. So you can find out more at zeroemptyspaces.com. Follow us on social media. Sign up for our newsletter. Send it out once a month. It's not spammy. And we're always working to make more spaces available, hopefully in Chicago soon. And if you are interested, don't hesitate to reach out. info@zeroemptyspaces.com. We're glad to support, glad to keep making these opportunities available. And the last thing I would just say, I appreciate the kind words about the pairing the emerging mid-career and established artists together. That is something that we pride ourselves on, because in some places, understandably so, like the Bakehouse, they really are only accepting artists that have long CVs, MFAs, and in nowadays time, you kind of have to know somebody to get in there. And there's some artists in the Bakehouse that have probably been there since you were there that aren't going to give their space up. Because why would you? It's such a coveted opportunity if you can, maintain it.
Yeah, but I had to give it up because that 95.
Yeah, that was a drive.
From my house there, because we were in Wilton Manors. It was just too long. But it was a good opportunity. I met a lot of great people there too.
And you met a lot of great people here. We have 25 artist studios here at the DCOTA. So we're right off of Griffin and 95, 1855 Griffin Road. Please feel free to join us. Got the open studios the third Friday of the month from 4 to 7 p.m. and have plenty of other events on the docket. So you can find them on our Eventbrite calendar, on our Facebook event calendar, and all the things. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Definitely, I learned a bunch and I'm inspired, and I'm going to try to find a secondhand copy of Formulas for Painters.
Okay, good for you.
Amen. And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.